America's West Coast is known for its temperate weather, relaxed way of living, and a wide variety of different cities, all with their own charm and appeal. So let's have some fun and pit them against each other and see which ones are the best and the worst from an urbanist perspective in the wonderful layout that is the tier list. Now first, I just want to say if you have any disagreements with this list, let's keep them respectful, but do let me know them down in the comments below. Now for help when it comes to ranking each one of these cities, I'm going to be pulling data on their walking, cycling, and transit from a wonderful source called WalkScore. For those of you who don't know, WalkScore summarizes cycling, transit, and walking in a city by a basic number between 0 and 100. On top of these categories, I also added an additional category to quantify both the vibes of how I feel about a city and also to categorize rent prices into a single score. Finally, I do need to add that the grade that each city receives on this list doesn't mean that it would get that grade on every list. I'm pretty sure that even the worst cities on this list would be on the top of the Texas list. But anyways, enough yapping from me, let's dive right into it. The homeland of our technological overlords, San Jose is the biggest of the three major Bay Area cities, both in area and population. However, that doesn't mean that it's the best when it comes to its city planning. The city does actually have quite the transit hub in its downtown at Diridon Station, with service to San Francisco and Gilroy via Caltrain, with the service to San Francisco being electrified later this year. Diridon Station also receives service from Alamont Commuter Express, which runs to Stockton. The station also is serviced by regional and long-distance Amtrak trains like the Capital Corridor that runs to Sacramento and Oakland. Diridon also gets service from VTA buses and light rail. Outside of the city's main train station though, San Jose also gets service from Bay Area Rapid Transit, also known as BART, at Berryessa Station in North San Jose. While it has all of these transit services, it really is a mixed bag of quality, mainly due to the land use around the city. Outside of downtown San Jose, you're dealing with a bunch of single-family housing, strip malls, and parking lots. This definitely isn't ideal for walking or cycling, and it really hurts the effectiveness of transit in San Jose. San Jose's light rail VTA is effectively useless for a lot of riders in San Jose as it deals with poor routing and poor land use around the stations. And on top of this mediocre transit, San Jose is incredibly expensive to live here. And for the price of rent that you're paying in San Jose, to deal with such a lackluster transit system compared to the rest of the Bay Area, San Jose is going to fall into the C tier. Probably most well known for sharing its airport with Seattle, Tacoma is actually a very interesting port city. While Tacoma isn't quite nearly as big as the other neighboring city to the north of it, it still does have access to transit, both from Amtrak's Cascades trains and the Sounder commuter rail. The city also relies on its streetcar operated by Sound Transit, as well as buses operated by Pierce Transit for local transit services. Tacoma, like many other cities in the US, is pretty walkable around its core and surrounding neighborhoods, but does taper off more into car-dependent suburbia the further you get out from it. Rent in Tacoma is cheaper than Seattle and sits around the middle of the pack when it comes to the West Coast cities. But with access to regional and local transit and planned expansions in the near future to the transit, Tacoma is likely to climb the ranking in the future for being a smaller city. C tier for now. The original home of the mouse, Anaheim is a major city that many people don't think a lot about for transit, but honestly, transit here isn't as bad as it is in other parts of California. With access to two of Metrolink's regional lines and access to Amtrak's Pacific Surfliner, which both run into its incredibly impressive modern train station, the city also receives local bus service both from Anaheim Regional Transportation and from Orange County Transportation. Unfortunately, Anaheim is also loaded with poor land use that makes it less than ideal to get around car-free. Along with higher rents because, let's face it, Orange County is expensive, Anaheim falls into the C tier. Everyone has a lot of thoughts when it comes to the premier city of the Bay Area, but I think one thing that pretty much everyone can agree on is that it has a pretty incredible transit network. From its easy access to BART and its connections to the East Bay and other parts of the Bay Area, Caltrain and its connections to San Jose, Muni with connections within the city via its buses, trolley buses, and the Muni Metro, and along with multiple smaller agencies that provide express service to San Francisco to other parts of the Bay, San Francisco is also loaded with plenty plenty of walkable and cycling-oriented neighborhoods throughout the city despite the adverse terrain in the city. Where San Francisco really takes its biggest hit has to come from its rent prices. This is a city with a lot of demand to live in, from its cultural amenities to its ideal weather to the plentiful amount of jobs within the city. However, San Francisco has done a poor job managing housing, not building enough of it, and also enacting other policies that encourage raising rents. San Francisco easily has the highest average rent for any city on the West Coast. Despite this, the transit accessibility and the tons of other benefits that the city of San Francisco has, it easily clears it in terms of its scores. But do you know what else belongs in the S tier? The patrons version of this video. Because not only do my patrons get access to videos like this one early, there's also extended content in my videos, extra videos, and you don't have to hear me yap about Patreon like I'm doing right now. So if you want to see the longer versions of my other tier list videos, or just want to support the channel, the link is down below. But let's get back into the video. Home of the University of Oregon, Eugene, like many other college towns across the country, punches above its weight in terms of transit, cycling, and walkability, as many college students live the car-free life. Eugene is not only the southern terminus to Amtrak's Cascade service, but is also home to the Emerald Express BRT, a 13-mile bus rapid transit corridor providing fast, frequent transit across the city. Along with this, the city's mixed-use zoning helps provide a more inviting environment for pedestrians and cyclists. And with rent in the city being fairly low for a West Coast city, Eugene is a small city providing walkability and being more affordable than some of the other cities on the West Coast. For that, it's going in the B tier. A city that's probably most well known for turning its streets into an F1 track every year, Long Beach has a storied history of car dependency that they're really trying hard to move away from. With access to the LA Metro A line and local transit provided for by Long Beach Transit, while the city has often relied on the oil and auto industry for its economy and has had some serious influence on the city design, demand for more transit and housing in the region has helped turn more neighborhoods into transit-oriented and walkable spaces. While there has been this change, a fair amount of the city still has some more car-dependent planning, but with some overall impressive changes over this time and some slightly more reasonable rent for Southern California, Long Beach fits right into the A tier. Honestly, I don't really have a ton to say about Fresno. It's a mid-sized city right in the heart of the Central Valley of California, and really compared to other cities of its size, it's quite average. It has service on Amtrak California's San Joaquin line, and the city has a bus network that runs somewhat frequently. They also do have a BRT line, but it kind of falls more into the category of frequent bus line with nicer stops. The bus network could also run later in the day, but it really isn't horrible outside of that. It's pretty standard for a bus system in a city of this size. Fresno, like all other cities, has some better walkability and transit near its core and downtown, and rent here is much cheaper than any of the other major West Coast cities. But overall, it's just kind of painfully average, and what better spot for it than the C tier? Oh boy, another incredibly controversial city. I don't think I can overstate how nice the core and surrounding neighborhoods of Portland are for being a pedestrian and cycling. The small city blocks and the wide bike lanes make this such a refreshing place to get around by these modes. But Portland has more to offer than just a good walking environment and cycling. Portland is home to TriMet, which runs the MAX trains which can get you all over the city, TriMet buses, and the Portland streetcar. Portland is also served by Amtrak's Cascade, with multiple trips to other Pacific Northwest cities. While these services have some pretty extensive and frequent networks, they are hamstrung by slow, at-grade speeds for most of their routes. This slow service often makes cycling a much faster option to get around the core of Portland other than transit. And like most other American cities, Portland has an ungodly amount of suburban sprawl in all directions. Despite these setbacks, for a city in the US, it punches above its weight in multimodal infrastructure, and while rents here are kind of higher than the US average, it's lower than the West Coast average. Portland goes into the A tier. California's capital, surprisingly, is not a totally car-free urbanist paradise. However, that doesn't mean that it's a totally car-dependent wasteland either. Sacramento is not only a hub for Amtrak service, serving both long-distance Amtrak trains and regional services like the Capitol Corridor and San Joaquin's. However, the city has local transit both from YOLO Bus and from SAC-RT, which provides both bus services and service on 3 light rail lines within the city of Sacramento. And while it's not the most comprehensive network of any city, it is in the midst of a modernization project. Like many other cities, Sacramento is much more walkable in its core than the surrounding neighborhoods. But man, some of these streets in downtown really are just a joy to be a pedestrian or cycle on. While the city is perfect by no means, with its average rent price and okay access to transit, Sacramento is going to go comfortably in the B tier. When a city's economy is based around oil drilling, it has a suburb named Oildale, and you're doing mid-20th century urban renewal highway projects in the current year of 2024, you know you're in for a bad start. Most of Bakersfield is car-dependent sprawl with horrible walkability and cycling infrastructure, and unfortunately for Bakersfield, its transit can't save it. While the city serves as the southern terminus for Amtrak San Joaquin's, the city's local bus service is poor to say the least. And while rent in Bakersfield is cheaper than any other city on the list, it can't save it from its awful city planning and transit. F tier. While Oakland has often been overlooked as the more working-class city in the East Bay, Oakland makes up for its struggles with access to transit and its walkability. The neighborhoods around downtown, barring the actual industrial ports, are pretty easy to get around by walking and cycling. On top of this, the main city of the East Bay has multiple different ways to get around to the other parts of Oakland, and the Bay Area in general. It's not quite as walkable or transit accessible as San Francisco. AC transit really does not compare to Muni, but it is a lot more affordable than both San Francisco and San Jose. Hopefully, Oakland can continue to build more housing to provide for its residents and help lower rent in the Bay Area. But regardless, it does fit quite well into the B tier. Let's head back down to Southern California, but let's go a little bit more inland this time and talk about the center of the Inland Empire. San Bernardino has some of the most horrible land use of any downtown I've ever seen. This essentially all comes from the horrible urban renewal projects like building an indoor shopping mall in the center of downtown. But it does seem like they're planning to redevelop this into a mixed-use, walkable development that seems more promising. San Bernardino transit-wise is mostly served by Omnitrans, which does operate a true BRT line within the city. Outside of that BRT line though, for local transit, it's a bit more average and unimpressive with the buses in San Bernardino. Now the city does receive intercity train service from Metrolink on multiple lines, with service to Orange County and downtown Los Angeles on the more traditional commuter rail lines, and San Bernardino also receives service from Metrolink's Arrow, a brand new branch line that connects San Bernardino to Redlands, California on some of California's most modern trains. While San Bernardino is looking to become a more transit-oriented city and is more affordable than cities like LA or Long Beach, it still has a long way to go and falls into the D tier. One thing I find incredibly interesting about San Diego is that up until recently, it had the highest ridership light rail in the US. While LA and a few of its light rail lines have recently overtaken it in overall ridership, San Diego still has a seemingly impressive transit network. It does get transit from the MTS trolley lines, local and express buses, and service from NCTD buses and the NCTD Coaster, a commuter rail to Oceanside from downtown San Diego. However, the problem with most of San Diego is poor zoning and sprawl. This is a problem with pretty much anywhere in America. However, San Diego combines it with the crazy housing prices of Southern California. And while San Diego does have some impressive walkable neighborhoods, the problem is that these walkable neighborhoods are the exception to the norm rather than being the norm. And unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put San Diego in the C tier. If you're not from Southern California, you might be wondering, what is Santa Ana and why is it on this list? And well, there's good reason. I'd honestly consider it the better city in Orange County, as it has some incredible walkability and mixed-use development within its downtown and surrounding neighborhoods. It has a lot of the same transit services as Anaheim like Metrolink, and overall just has better street planning for bikes and pedestrians. On top of this, the rent is slightly cheaper in Santa Ana, and also they're planning to build some more transit with a streetcar. And with all these factors lining up, Santa Ana is gonna go into the B tier. Arguably one of the most multimodal cities in the country, Seattle has a ton of different transit modes to get around on, and while services like the ferry are classic to the city, and the exciting building out of Link Light Rail is something to look forward to, the real workhorse of public transit in Seattle is its buses. While all types of buses, from certified natural gas to battery electric buses to trolley buses, both operated in express and local services by both Sound Transit and King County buses, they truly do all of the transit heavy lifting within the city. On top of this, Seattle has access to cities all over the continent, from Amtrak long distance trains to the Cascades with regional service to cities south and services up to Canada. While transit is pretty good in Seattle, the city really stands out for its bike infrastructure and walkability. The city has also been encouraging this by building out more infrastructure and zoning neighborhoods to be mixed use, making it easier for neighborhoods to be walkable. The city still has plenty of sprawl though, and many neighborhoods are unaffordable due to this crazy housing and rental markets of the Pacific Northwest. The city is still great for transit, cycling, and walkability, and I'm gonna put it into the A tier. The heart of Southern California has undergone a major transformation in the past 30 years, from being a city that ripped up its streetcar network for cars and highways and turned back into a city based around multimodal car-free transportation. Leading this charge has been the LA Metro, building out subways, light rail, and busways to connect the city, and while we're still in the middle of an exciting transformation of America's second largest city, LA still has a long way to go, as it still has plenty of car-dependent neighborhoods and highways splitting up the city. However, Los Angeles is still loaded with walkable, bikeable neighborhoods, and while rent is still really high in Los Angeles, it's not as insane as many other cities in California like the Bay Area. LA is a city of contrasts, and while it's still somewhat car-dependent depending on your neighborhood, they've done a lot to improve the city, and Los Angeles' score is likely to climb if I do this tier list even 5-10 years down the line. But for now, LA goes comfortably into the B tier. Here's a quick recap of all the cities on this list. How do you feel about my rankings? Do you think you'd change anything? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'd like to thank everybody who helped me make this video. I'd also like to thank Tony Stunts and everybody else who supports me over on Patreon. Want to get extra content, early access to videos, your name in the credits, or just want to support the channel? The link is down below. Also, while you're down there, you'll find the links to my other socials. Folks, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. This one took me forever to make, and I appreciate your support. But as always, I'll see y'all on the next one.